step back.
I was there for a crucial competition that could promote a boss who had taken good care of me. However, at the crucial moment, her computer broke down. That presentation required a speech in French. Even though everyone knew the content of the presentation, without a script, speaking in French was a different story. Desperately clicking on the computer's power button, my boss Michelle pleaded.
Just a little more time, please.
But the person in charge stood up, irritated.
I don't have time to waste on a company that can even give a proper presentation.
Michelle's shoulders slumped. That couldn't be the end. Though I had been pegged as a lackluster employee, I decided to take a stand in the emergency.
I'll do it.
I took the stage. The officials looked at me with disdain, but the moment I began to speak, I captured the attention of everyone in the room. It was the moment my stagnant life started to move forward. My name is John Miller, 35-year-old. I am an ordinary office worker at a travel agency. Our company, which plans package tours both domestically and internationally, is vibrant with international clients, workplace culture, and customers. I value the opportunity to learn about foreign cultures without leaving the country. However, I'm not particularly outstanding at my job. While I find my job enjoyable and stimulating, I have no ambition for promotion and am content with maintaining my current position. My peers have been promoted one after another, with some already assistant managers. Although I'm genuinely happy for them, I don't envy them. I was aware of the rumors and backtalk about me not taking promotion exams and staying in my position without caring about what others think. Some speculated that I remain a regular employee because I'm not competent or lack motivation. It wasn't pleasant to hear, but staying a regular employee was indeed my reality. I ignored the gossip and found it too bothersome to correct. Despite that, the company has been meaningful to me. On September, during the personnel transfer period, new members came to our office from another branch. Among them, Michelle Johnson stood out. Transferred from a store in a neighboring city, she was an excellent manager handling international clients with her youthful beauty. She was approachable to all employees, truly flawless. She was sent here as a candidate for store manager, eyeing a promotion. One day, while checking documents, I found a discrepancy. The name and address of a hotel listed for a tour were not found on its website. Although it was on our internal server list, I wondered why. Upon checking the hotel company's website, I discovered they had recently moved to a different location. The document was prepared by Michelle, so I quietly approached her with the documents.
Michelle, about this hotel.
After blinking in surprise, she searched the same page to confirm.
Really? I appreciate you noticing, thank you.
No problem, I'll update the internal list later.
Thanks. Now, what should we do about the hotel? The new location is too far. How about this one?
She opened another hotel's website and showed it to me. While we were looking at the computer together, something caught my eye, and I pointed it out.
This might not fit the tour's concept. It seems too high-end.
Definitely, how about this place then?
If we go with this hotel, there's a 3-month discount campaign, which seems like a good deal.
Really, good eye.
She stopped mid-sentence and turned to look at me, her expression more surprised than before, tilting her head.
John, you were just having a normal conversation with me, right?
Yes.
You followed everything I said?
I honestly nodded since I didn't recall the conversation being particularly difficult.
It was just hotel searching.
But, all the websites were in the local language, right?
Yes, that's true.
And yet, you understood and noticed a lot.
Given our line of work, that's pretty standard.
I kind of got what she was getting at. Nowadays, not many people make a big deal out of someone being able to smoothly read foreign websites. Especially since we work for a travel agency. At that time, all the websites we were looking at were actually in French.
So, John, you know French.
It's my second language, so I can read it. It's nothing special.
Wow, I didn't know that. The website seemed to have quite a few tricky expressions, right?
You're reading it too. Anyway, what are you going to do to revise the proposal? I'll take care of it first.
Oh, yes, if you wouldn't mind.
Understood.
I excused myself and quickly returned to my desk. She seemed about to say something but was then approached by another employee, and the moment to pursue the conversation further was lost. Later on, our branch was selected to participate in a competition. In this company, not only the main office's management team could join competitions, but branch staff could also bring forth their proposals for business opportunities. Michelle was chosen to spearhead a project representing our branch. Needless to say, it would significantly impact her career advancement. I was also included in the project team, probably because they found out I could somewhat read French from our previous interaction. I didn't think I would be of much help, and asking to be removed from the team would only make me stand out in a bad way. Since the competition wasn't about a tour in France, I doubted any major tasks would come my way. Resigned, I attended the internal meeting for the competition. Moreover, one day, there was a business trip related to that. Michelle was still seemingly doubtful of my abilities, so she insisted I accompany her. Upon arriving at the client company's waiting room, somewhat reluctantly, I ran into a familiar face in the lobby.
Isn't that John?
George.
The man dressed in a high-end suit was a former colleague from another travel agency where I used to work. He greeted Michelle and me with a smile.
What a coincidence, John. You're on sales too.
Yes, glad to see you're doing well.
Well, yes. But, it was tough after you left.
Is that so?
No hard feelings. I owe you a lot, John. How's everything at your current company?
Thanks to you, pretty good.
That's good to hear. Remember, you're always welcome to come back. Everyone would greet you with open arms.
Thank you.
Consciously avoiding a grimace, I gave him a non-committal response.
Does that mean your company is also competing in the Raven Group's competition?
Yes.
I see. Having a strong rival is troublesome.
He joked before being called away. Michelle looked at me with curious eyes.
Was that man from your previous company?
Yes, he was my colleague.
I see. You were quite relied upon, weren't you?
I suppose so.
I hastily shut my mouth after my somewhat sharp reply. She seemed to probe for the meaning behind my words, but I kept dodging her questions. The day ended on a positive note with our client, and upon returning, she dived right back into competition prep. Despite being my boss, she's not much older than me. Yet, her dedication to such a significant task, striving to meet expectations, was something beyond my comprehension. Sure, a promotion would mean a salary increase and recognition. But she already holds a high position. The merit of her relentless effort was unclear to me. Whether it was a strong sense of responsibility or simply enjoying the process, it was beyond my understanding. I've seen other employees overwhelmed by deadlines, but her drive, having everything yet striving for more, intrigued me deeply.
Michelle.
I called out to her, working past the end of the day.
What's up?
It's already past the clock-out time.
She looked around, surprised by the time. From the way she looked, it seemed like she wasn't paying attention to the time.
I hadn't realized. Thanks, John. Are you heading out?
There's something I want to ask.
What is it?
It might be rude to ask, but how can you work so hard? The competition doesn't necessarily require your participation. You've got other tasks, and getting a promotion wouldn't be hard for you, right?
Indeed.
She pulled up a chair, signaling me to sit. She showed me her personal smartphone, filled with pictures of a little girl and what seemed like her parents.
This is me.
Wow, that's nice.
My parents love to travel, taking me to numerous places.
The backgrounds in those photos varied greatly, from vast landscapes to historical buildings, sometimes even featuring hard-to-see animals.
I've also traveled with relatives, friends during my student years, and of course, I still travel a lot now. Each journey is a precious treasure to me.
They all look fun.
Yes. Travel is fun. That's why I joined this job, to make travel more enjoyable than people expect. My efforts aren't for promotions or recognition but to enhance people's enjoyment of their trips.
For that purpose.
Yes. Of course, having a position is important. After all, having authority makes it easier to pass plans, right?
She showed me a document she was working on, featuring beautiful seascapes and ships.
Travel should be enjoyed. Just imagining people enjoying my tours makes me happy.
She spoke with sparkling eyes, without showing any signs of fatigue. She was proud of her work.
I do too.
Yes?
I also love traveling. The tour you planned, I'm sure the customers will enjoy it.
Having you say that really gets me motivated.
She rolls up her sleeves and turns back to her computer. When I say I want to help too, she shows me the competition's manuscript written in French.
I'm trying to figure out how to convey my key points. Can we discuss it?
Yes. Well, making this expression softer might. It's easy to understand from an American perspective, but it might be harder for foreigners to get.
Then, is this okay? Should I change this part too?
Indeed, that seems better.
And like that, I became so engrossed that I forgot the time and ended up working late. It was probably the first time I had been so absorbed in my work, usually trying not to overdo it daily. Influenced by her, I thought it might be good to broaden my perspective and look beyond just my abilities and evaluations. And then, the day of the competition arrived. We were the 5th out of 5 companies to present. The tension lasted until the very end, but Michelle was not just waiting for her turn, she was learning from the other companies' presentations. Inspired by her, I also paid attention to the presentations. Finally, it was her turn. She went up to the conference room podium and placed her laptop on the table. We were waiting for the company logo to appear on the white screen, but after a minute with nothing showing, we realized something was wrong. On stage, she was frantically tapping on the laptop's keyboard.
Please excuse us, just a moment more.
She said. Her colleague went to check on her.
What's wrong?
The computer isn't working. It was fine until just before. I'm trying to restart it.
It looks out of order.
Can someone get a backup computer?
Holding her things, I rushed to bring a backup laptop to the stage. However, for some reason, it also wouldn't turn on. It was charged, that much had been confirmed beforehand. If it wasn't turning on, it didn't seem like a signal issue.
Maybe I should go back to the company to get another one.
I blurted out in a panic. Another colleague dismissed my idea, saying it wouldn't be in time, but even discussing it felt like a waste of precious moments. Michelle prefers to store her manuscripts on the computer. Even if she had printed them, presenting a tour without anything showing on the screen would convey nothing.
Are you ready?
The moderator approached, looking concerned. As we explained about the computer trouble, a man in the front row, likely an executive, crossed his arms and said gruffly,
Enough, if you're not motivated, please step down.
Just a little more time.
We can't afford to waste time on a company that can even present properly. There are 4 other companies, we'll decide from them. That's okay, right?
The man asked a person sitting next to him. He reluctantly placed his materials on the table. At that moment, I remembered all the effort Michelle had put in over the past few months. How she talked about wanting to make people enjoy her tours, the time forgotten while she passionately worked on the plan. She had even gone on location to make sure tourists could fully enjoy the sights.
There's no way we can end it here.
I entrusted the laptop to Michelle, then stepped up to the podium. The attendees were chatting or on their smartphones. Nonetheless, I took a deep breath, undeterred. Everything she created is all in my head.
Seems the computer got a bit nervous in front of everyone. But don't worry, I can speak better than any computer. Please take a look at the first slide.
The moment I spoke, the man earlier looked up instantly. The CEO and other employees were watching me too. And they turned their attention to the document as instructed. Seems like my French got through.
Where would you all like to travel to? Somewhere fun, right?
My French made someone at the edge couldn't help but speak out.
Can you speak French?
I replied in French.
Yes, it's my second language, though. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Glad to hear. Maybe I should also consider being a tour guide.
That would be wonderful.
Those who didn't understand French were puzzled.
Excuse me.
I said in French before switching to my recently learned Chinese.
I was having him grade my French. Seems I passed. If I can get a passing grade in Chinese too, next time I'll be doing business with Chinese clients as well.
The person I made eye contact with had a Chinese name tag. As expected, my Chinese got a reaction. Michelle and the others couldn't see their reactions, but my ex-colleague George and employees from other companies were astonished. He might be surprised since I couldn't speak Chinese at my previous company.
Now, let's put aside the chit-chat and start the presentation.
I switched back to French and continued the presentation, erasing any irritation from the participants with occasional jokes. I brought up the material and shared little-known facts about the tourist spots in the photos. And on time, I concluded with a smile. The audience clapped as if they had witnessed a special trick. I had conveyed everything needed to be said. The rest was up to Michelle, and I stepped down from the podium. The competition results would be announced later, but on the way out, the CEO Oliver personally thanked me.
I really enjoyed your speech. I hope you can entertain many more on our tours.
I translated for some employees who didn't understand French, and they were overjoyed. After managing to pull off a success, I was called to the meeting room by Michelle.
John. How can I ever thank you?
She was quite down. Despite being fully prepared, the computer malfunctioned. She can't help but feel frustrated.
As teammates, covering for each other is only natural.
I really messed up. I talked big and in the end, needed your help, John.
Both computers malfunctioning was beyond our control. They're still not working.
Even after returning from the competition, both of hers laptops wouldn't turn on. We left them with the IT department to find the cause.
I should have prepared the manuscript and slides better. Feels like a rookie mistake. But John, your quick thinking was amazing. To think you memorized the script.
Well, we worked on it together, so.
Not just that, you used so many languages. You could speak Chinese too.
Yes.
In this competition, I relied too much on you. I need to be able to do more on my own.
She laughed self-deprecatingly, making me feel uneasy.
Aren't you going to say, let's keep working together?
What do you mean?
I mean, not to brag, but, if you use me wisely, we might win more competitions in the future.
That's pointless.
She said firmly.
If I don't win the competition with my own effort, how can I confidently offer tours? It's because they're my achievements that I can be proud of them.
Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. She was different from any other colleague or boss I've worked with.
I've been dodging something up until now.
The reason for your language skills?
Yes.
Will you tell me?
Because you're different from others.
I've been moving from country to country around the world since I was young due to my parents' jobs. A lot of these countries were French-speaking, so French and English were both equally a part of my life. When we finally settled down in US, I was shocked. None of the kids my age could speak French at all. They barely managed to read and write. I couldn't understand why something so simple was impossible for them, not realizing it was the difference in our upbringings. I used French openly as if it were natural. All the classmates were curious and asked me all sorts of things about French. As a kid, I found joy in sharing my knowledge and happily met their requests. Eventually, I accepted being used by others. It wasn't until university, during a group work for my German major, that I started questioning it. I was pushed to be the leader, create the materials, and even present them all by myself. When I asked why I had to do everything, everyone said in unison,
"Because you can speak French."
They thought if someone could speak a second language, they must be good at all languages. They chose the easy path for good grades, and their success was treated as a collective effort, making my achievements theirs too. That's when I realized I was being exploited. Despite realizing it during a mere school assignment, I thought it was more efficient if I took charge since it wasn't that difficult of a task. With that mindset, I landed a job at a travel agency. By then, I could handle German too, making me a valuable trilingual asset in English, French, and German. Initially, I was pleased to utilize my skills and take on a lot of work, but that satisfaction didn't last. It began a year into the job when my direct boss, George, he asked me to create a proposal in French due to his struggle with the language. I gladly accepted, having been helped by him since joining. Pleased with my work, he asked for more help. Juggling those tasks with my own work led to extensive overtime. Yet, when our plan succeeded and became products, the joy made it seem worthwhile, and I didn't complain. The situation worsened a year later when I had gained some perspective over the company. George had been promoted to manager, yet I still worked under him. When I was being given more and more jobs, I tried to use my past documents as reference materials, and I was stunned when I saw past proposals that had been approved. His name was the only one listed in the report of the project, in which I was involved in about 90% of the project. If I recall correctly, I heard that his business performance was poor until I joined the company. When I checked other reports and proposals, I realized that my name had disappeared from the creator column and had been replaced by him. He was in charge of the final submission to the top, and he is certainly the person in charge of the project. However, the ideas, interviews, and proposals were all prepared by me. He was generally unable to create materials in French. I looked for George, who was away from his seat, to ask him what he meant. He was just talking to the manager when he spotted him in the smoking area.
"George, the Paris story you gave us this morning was great, wasn't it?"
The project the manager was discussing was also one I created.
Exactly, I had a local contact and got some insights.
His words were exactly what I had said. That tour was developed from conversations with a colleague of my father who helped me a lot when I was a kid.
Excuse me.
Unable to hold back, I approached them. George looked momentarily flustered but quickly regained his composure.
"John, what's up? You here for a smoke too?"
No, I wanted to ask George something. The Paris tour you were discussing, that was my idea, wasn't it?
Indeed, you helped out with that. Much appreciated.
Helped out.
It was more than that, but the manager nodded in agreement with him.
"A result of your guidance, George."
Really? Don't praise me too much. I'll get cocky.
I tried to wedge myself into their congenial exchange.
Not just that, but the Alaska tour before that, and the South Asia plan before that were also my ideas, right?
That's not the right attitude.
The manager suddenly scolded me.
Work isn't done alone. It's about collaborating as a team and achieving results. Hogging the credit isn't commendable.
I was dumbstruck by his words. Did he really not know what was going on?
But George was promoted based on the success of those projects, right?
Well, he's the team leader. He's evaluated for bringing the team together.
I was left speechless by another blow, unable to say anything more. I didn't want to say anything anymore. With these kinds of people as superiors, no matter how hard I worked, I'd just be used for their benefit. My achievements would just feed into someone else's appraisal. My distrust for people relying on my abilities and those evaluating me reached its peak. And within a month, I left that company. Luckily, thanks to my language skills, finding a new job was easy. That's where I am now. Here, there are no people like them to steal my credit. That's because I've been holding back on showing my full capabilities and keeping my language skills hidden. If all my efforts would just end up benefiting someone else's promotion, it felt futile. However, when it comes to Michelle,
seeing you, I've realized how rewarding it can be to be acknowledged for your hard work. Initially, I wanted to make people happy through my job too. But somewhere along the line, I started caring too much about recognition.
Leaving that company was the right decision.
she said, somewhat angrily.
Of course, enjoying your job is important, but if your achievements aren't properly recognized, it's natural to lose motivation. That manager isn't fit to be an evaluator.
But I was also to blame. If I had communicated better with them, maybe things wouldn't have ended up like that.
Then, use that reflection here. There's no one here to steal your credit. As long as I'm here, I won't let that happen.
What a reassuring thing to say.
Honestly, preparing for this competition, it was genuinely fun. Seeing you work so hard on something you're passionate about it, draws me in too.
If that's how you feel, I couldn't be happier as your boss. Now, you don't have to hold back. Don't suppress your desires, do what you want to do.
Just then, hers phone rang.
Excuse me a moment.
She said, pulling out her phone.
This is Michelle from White Raven Tours. Yes. What? I'll be right there.
She hung up, grabbed my arm, and we hurried out of the meeting room.
What happened?
We've found the cause of the laptop issue. We're heading back to the competition venue.
Wait, the venue was the cause.
More like one of the participants.
On the way, I couldn't believe what I heard. Surprisingly, George was the culprit behind hers laptop malfunction. After his presentation, he had hidden a powerful magnet under the desk that could damage electronic devices. He was caught trying to retrieve it stealthily by a staff member of the Raven Group. Upon our arrival, the scene in the meeting room had completely changed. George was there, looking dejected, along with a familiar face from our previous company and the people from the Raven Group. The organizer approached us to explain the situation. Caught red-handed, George had confessed to sabotaging our presentation. His superior was called in to clarify the situation, leading to the current moment.
Ms. Johnson has arrived.
The organizer said, leading us in front of George and the others.
Is that true?
It's all John's fault.
He suddenly shouted, abandoning his previous demeanor and pointing at me accusingly.
He betrayed us by leaving the company. My workload increased, our performance suffered, and he just left us in the lurch. We would have won this competition if he hadn't been here.
You sabotaged us because you feared John's talent.
Michelle said, her voice filled with an anger I hadn't heard before.
Is trampling over someone's hard work fun for you? You've been doing it for so long. Does it even bother you anymore?
What do you know about me?
At least I know that without John, you're incapable of achieving anything. You've been parading around with his achievements. Who's the real traitor here?
He was working under my orders. Don't get me wrong.
Your actions are proof enough. Michelle interrupted, handing her business card to his superior.
I am this person. We'll likely be seeing each other in court, so please look forward to it.
Court!
Of course, for business obstruction and property damage. Suing is only natural.
With no rebuttal possible, the civil lawsuit proceeded, and George was dismissed for violating numerous company policies. Given the lawsuit, finding new employment seemed unlikely. Even after the lawsuit, reintegrating into society wouldn't be easy. As expected, rumors say he is now struggling with debt. On the other hand, after our successful competition presentation, Michelle was promoted, considering her past achievements. Furthermore, my significant contribution was recognized, leading to my own promotion. Our language skills were also acknowledged, and we both were assigned overseas duties.
We'll make the most out of field research,
Michelle said excitedly. Now, we live together at our new location. I respected and cared for her, who drastically changed my life, and seemingly, she also has grown fond of me for my dedication. I used to think effort was pointless unless it was acknowledged. But I've learned that there are people who will genuinely appreciate hard work. If only I had opened up sooner without prejudice, but I lacked the courage without the right opportunity. Going forward, I'll trust people more and ensure to fairly evaluate my staff. Here, I believe things will go well. My name is William. I've been working at a construction company for 7 years. After graduating from college, I got used to the company I joined as a new grad, and my salary has gone up to a decent amount. And I just proposed to my girlfriend of 5 years, Emily. She didn't hesitate to say okay, and we thought a fun life was starting for us. Just when I thought that, right before Christmas, during the busiest time, I was suddenly called by my boss James. From his expression, it was clear it wasn't good news. What on earth could it be? Feeling a bad premonition, I followed him to a meeting room. Entering the room, what do you know, both the CEO and the vice president were there. Suddenly, I felt like I was in a position to be judged. The CEO, with a stern face, said,
"Take a seat."
As I sat down, sweat broke out on my forehead. What have I done? The vice president, sitting next to the CEO, started explaining to me in a matter-of-fact tone.
Let's get straight to the point. It turns out that the condo building you were in charge of has been found to have fake fireproof resistance. The developer is furious, and future contracts might be voided. What have you done? You're prepared for the consequences, right?
Huh. I had no idea what he was talking about. I reported that project to James and followed all the procedures correctly. I responded on the spot.
Excuse me. I'm suddenly being told this and don't understand the circumstances. Could you allow me to verify this on my end?
Anyway, I was desperate. Then,
What are you taking your sweet time for? We've already been told by our client to not keep the person who made this mistake. You'll be given time to use up your paid leave, and that's that.
all of that was news to me. Besides, James showed no signs of defending me even though I've worked with him for years. Stunned, I left the room and headed to my desk. Who could have done it? My personal belongings were packed in a cardboard box on my desk. A member from HR awkwardly approached me.
We'll send you the resignation paperwork by mail. Please fill it out and mail it back. You can leave early for today.
I had been working cheerfully with my colleagues just on the previous day, but they whispered among themselves as they looked at me. It was clear they had given up on me. Thus, I was kicked out of the company I had worked for 7 years, holding a single cardboard box.
It felt like scenes from the Lehman shock.
I chuckled bitterly as I started the car engine. Finally, when I got home, the calm, usual me returned. Upon reflecting, the construction of that condo was led by the CEO's heir Chris, and I wasn't even the leader. James must have known that. I was framed. I was held responsible for the fake fireproof resistance by upper management. I finally understood. However, even if I realized the truth, it would be difficult for me, who isn't the leader, to gather documents now. Probably, all the documents from that time are managed by Chris and James. At this rate, I won't be able to gather evidence to file a lawsuit. I couldn't help but mutter to myself,
What is this situation? It's a complete deadlock.
frustration welled up inside me. I lay on the floor and cried continuously. After crying all night, I faced the reality of my future life. First, I had to explain the situation properly to Emily. I called her to a coffee shop and reported the whole story properly. In order to make sure she wouldn't worry, I deliberately told her in a cheerful manner.
I'll have to find a new job now. But I'll work hard, so don't worry. I hope you can support me too.
As soon as I said that, I could tell the atmosphere froze. She couldn't hide her agitation and snapped back at me in an irritated tone.
What are you saying? How could I possibly marry someone without a job? You shouldn't have proposed.
After throwing those words at me, she quickly got up and left. The double shock of being fired and a broken engagement had me bedridden for days. I couldn't trust or believe in anyone anymore. I became reckless, living carelessly. My life turned upside down, spending my nights wandering and drinking. Abandoned by Emily, who was my support, I had no motivation to job hunt. I spent my days sitting alone on the riverbank. Then one day, as I was zoning out by the riverbank with my coffee, a soccer ball suddenly grazed over my head. The ball rolled to a stop right beside me. Then,
Excuse me. Could you please get the ball for us?
as looking up, I saw two boys and a woman, presumably their mother, waving at me. I nodded with a smile, and threw the ball back to them. The boys thanked me and ran back to their soccer game. Then, the woman approached me and said,
You're always here, aren't you? Are you a parent of one of the soccer team members?
She seemed to have mistaken me for one of the parents. I honestly told her I was just hanging out, but she continued talking. She was a very friendly woman named Sarah. Assuming I was a mom friend, she casually sat beside me and started chatting. Initially, I found it bothersome, but having not spoken to anyone all day for a while, I gradually began to enjoy our conversation. Sarah was a very energetic woman. Talking to her, I felt energized. I inadvertently vented about my daily frustrations and truths, and we talked about various things. Eventually, I even shared the story of my firing, and she listened with empathy. She was angry on my behalf yet trying to keep the mood light, and made me laugh. After sharing everything, I felt a bit relieved.
William, your face! Look, you're crying.
She panicked and pointed out. To my surprise, I found myself laughing through tears. In these last few days, stress had caused me insomnia, and I had lost a significant amount of weight. Feeling like I had finally managed to release some stress, I thanked her repeatedly. Curious, she suddenly asked,
What's the name of that terrible company?
Why would she ask me that? While wondering, I honestly told her the company's name. She looked shocked.
I work in security at the terrible company.
I was astonished. Such a coincidence. Realizing our common ground, she suddenly became serious and said,
I might be able to find evidence that you were set up.
She switched to work mode and started asking me for detailed information about the problematic project, including dates, locations, and circumstances. I told her everything I knew. She took notes on everything, and said with gripping my hands tightly with a smile,
I'll do my best to find the evidence. William, let's fight to have your bosses retract the firing.
I was truly surprised. Though I was feeling guilty and said to her,
I can't ask someone I've just met to do such a thing. You could end up getting fired yourself. Besides, I don't care anymore.
To my listless reply, she said,
That's not a good way to think.
She seriously lectured me, as if scolding a child, tears welling up in her eyes while she pleaded earnestly. Seeing her like that made me feel timid, especially since even Emily, who had been with me for 5 years, had easily abandoned me. Then, Sarah began to share her past with tears.
Actually, I was once framed by my company too. And to make matters worse, the colleague who framed me was having an affair with my husband. I was perfectly set up by the two of them and ended up as a single mother.
I was speechless with surprise. I had thought I was the most unfortunate person in the world, but she had gone through much more hardship. I felt ashamed of my own self-pity. She encouraged me further.
I can't see your situation as someone else's problem. You and I are the same. After I left the company, I realized I had been framed and had no recourse. That's why I took a job in security, so I could be in a position to help someone else. You still have a chance. William, will you trust me and fight this unreasonable reality together?
As I listened to her, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I had thought if I just endured, if I just turned a blind eye, I could bear it. But accepting that unjust reality meant my future life was doomed to defeat, I made up my mind and shared my feelings with her.
Sarah, well, I can't accept the firing. I'll fight the company thoroughly. I want to prove the wrongdoing, even if it's a long shot, so I can live my life with confidence. Could you lend me your strength?
Overwhelmed with emotion, I begged desperately. Sarah nodded and said,
Yes. Let's reveal who's truly responsible for this fireproof resistance fraud. We'll show your bosses and restore your honor.
We shook hands firmly. A week had passed since meeting Sarah and her children on the riverbank. She really did move on my behalf. Incredibly, she found a video of James and his colleagues secretly talking in a meeting room, where James was caught on audio forcing a licensed architect to cut costs in the design. It seemed he planned to pocket the skimmed construction funds himself. They probably thought that if it was a case involving Chris, the CEO's son, internal checks would be lax. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I appealed directly to the CEO. Thanks to Sarah's help, I could present numerous pieces of evidence with accurate information. The CEO was taken aback. He was unaware that the fireproof resistance fraud condo was Chris's project. He deeply apologized to me.
My son probably knew it was his project and didn't come forward with the truth. I'll give him a stern warning. I am terribly sorry for the significant damage to your reputation. Here's what we'll do.
And he provided substantial support for my reinstatement. Later, James was disciplined at an internal meeting and demoted to a regional office. About Chris, he got a severe reprimand from his father. Starting over as an entry-level employee was decided. And as for me,
thank you very much.
Not at all. Hearing that your firing was cancelled made me really happy.
Since then, I started going out with Sarah's family, initially as a thank you dinner, but as they learned I played soccer in my college days, I began giving lessons to her children by the river, deepening our relationship. Seeing Sarah's always smiling face gives me strength. During tough times, she went all out to help me, and I hope to gradually close the distance between us, entertaining such thoughts.